Hey everybody, welcome to Roll for Crit. I'm Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler.
And we are here today to give you a brief overview of the game Among Nobles from the company Among Meeples. And this was one that you actually backed on Kickstarter yourself.
Yeah, that's right. And this is actually my copy. They actually contacted us in advance about us, and I was like, well, I backed it, so you've already, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in an actual episode.
I think we did talk about it in one of our podcast episodes too. So now we actually have our hands on it. We've played it, so we can give kind of a brief overview. I'll leave that part to you.
All right, so pretty much as almost many games you can guess is about getting points. In this, the way you're going to be getting points is pretty much through organizing your family as generations come and go, and marrying off between other players.
Because of course this takes place in, old times. The old times, I think is what they call it.
Is that the official?
Yeah, it's all about, as the title would suggest, European nobles and bloodlines and things like that. Mary and Henry and all those good people.
Right. And some of the cards actually have little quotes on them about the characters, which we do like, and their abilities, for the few that we recognize, are related. Like King Henry was actually about discarding his wives to get points.
Right. So yeah, there's a lot of fun, flavory things like that in the game. For example, you get to marry off your people.
Right. So one of the abilities of the cards is the marry off, in which let's say in my case, since I have a male heir there, I would say I'm trying to get this card married, and every player who has a daughter has to offer up one of their daughters by choice.
So let's say I had a daughter here who is unwed. I would put her fourth, and then he gets to choose who is best.
Yes, among the other players.
And you are actually rewarded if your daughter is chosen.
Right.
You get points, plus you might get other bonuses depending on the card. So it recreates the interesting feeling of you want the prestige for real, because it's like, oh, I'm honored that my daughter's been chosen. I've raised a glorious child. And there's all kinds of stuff like that. And then there's also this big component here, this center map, and then we have it set up right now for 4 or 5 players.
Right.
With 3, there'll be less stuff on the field. Where you have these cubes that are your troops, your military, and if you have dominance in any one area, you get the rewards listed on the card.
At the end of each round.
Yeah, so it's almost like there's this area control aspect to it, as well as kind of a worker placement.
Right.
With card drawing.
Right, and what we can't forget here, what this is are your options for what children you can have.
Right.
One of the options, almost on every wed couple, I think it's mandatory actually, if I recall correctly, is to have a child. Now, some cards will say only female, some will say male, some will have both symbol, allowing you to choose. The only other restriction, besides what that symbol is the colors. So, for example, this couple here, which I'm showing, excluding his ability, which allows him to change things, but I can only have a green or a blue child, like genetics, so you can't. And colors do tend to lean. Red tend to be more aggressive dealing here. The yellow ones tend to deal more with the coin, the commerce. The blue tend to do more with the piety, which is the actual points for winning. Mm-hmm. And the green is negotiation. Yeah.
So I think that's a pretty good rundown of how it works. You have these. Yeah, go ahead.
Pretty much cards get stronger with each called era.
Yeah, age. I forget what they call it.
And each time you switch ages, your topmost line dies off.
Right.
Which some of them actually give inheritance.
So you actually do kind of get a sense of your bloodline progressing and the old people dying off.
Well, it's also a good way to maintain table space, because you actually can't have more than three rows of family.
Right.
So a father, child, and grandchild.
Definitely an important consideration. Unless there's any other important we can get, well, if we forgot anything, we'll get to it, I'm sure.
Right.
But we can talk about how we...
one other big thing, which I think is important, because you mentioned worker placement. Mm-hmm. There is 3 tokens.
Right.
That is your worker placement. I think there might be 1 or 2 cards that let you maybe repeat an action, but not really get another token. So it's not like, I know most worker placement I can think of have a way for you to get.
Yeah, so there's a little, it's harder for someone to run away necessarily with first place. At least in that way.
Yes, in that way.
Kind of happened to us a little bit. But yeah, I really enjoyed this game.
No, I think this game actually does a very hilarious job of capturing the feel.
Right. Well, first, like we were saying, marrying your people off, it's fun and it's really funny. And also it's in theme to the point where Once you get married, the woman gets covered up by the man
because he has to be the starring role. Because
right.
God forbid.
That's how it was back then. So they really, even though it is a very Euro-y kind of game. You got cubes and all this stuff, but that theme does come across in fun and interesting ways, and it has that. Yeah.
I think the other thing that we missed when we played a lot, that I wasn't realizing more, is it actually still has that political sense of the families growing. There was, because one game in particular, on my turn, I took a space away from my brother, one of the territories. So in return, he retaliated, in which I retaliated back, which caused you to pretty much just get a whole bunch of victory points because we kept focusing on each other.
Yeah,
a brotherly feud happened.
But it's and that can happen. That can come about multiple ways because it could also be like you said, like, oh, you didn't pick my woman to marry.
Well, then
I'm not gonna.
And might be like, I don't want to have wed your daughter because you'll get points.
That's another interesting thing.
Certain cards actually get benefits from getting married. Like this one, for example, which is a lot have, is the person whose daughter this is gets 2 coin and 2 what's it called?
Piety
prestige points for marrying this daughter off.
Right. So in some ways, sometimes you want to take a daughter for those rewards, and sometimes you don't because you don't want someone else to be able to marry their guy to your person.
And there's also some other girls we realize, because of course, women in history, there are actually some really important ones who actually did things.
who do have good
they
abilities.
have actually great abilities while they're not married.
Right. Some of them you want to keep to yourself.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we always love in games that is the artwork.
Right.
We always it seems like always comes up. We talk about games where they just use like classical paintings for the artwork.
Well, because I think it's something that's hard to just throw in.
It's classy and it's it's going to look good, and they do a good job, and the cards are definitely. It's a pretty simple game, even though the box says I think 90 to 120 minutes. You could easily finish a game in under an hour, I'd say, easily.
Yeah, I mean, we played mostly 3.
Knowing, that's true too.
Knowing if we're playing more, if we're playing more Game of Thrones style.
Right, depending on how fast or slow people are, but. The cards are easy to read. The symbols, once you know them, it's very apparent what everything does. So that aspect is great. And
well, I also think you could expand on it in very hilarious ways.
Please.
Well, the simple way in which this isn't as much hilarity, but I would love to see would be like for other cultures in particular. I think I would love the Legends of Three Kingdom from China. Because I know I've played a lot with them through the Dynasty Warriors series, so I know a lot about their weird marriages and feuds. So seeing some of those characters appear in here, I think would be cool.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of different lineages you could have fun with. Fictional lineages.
Right. And then going to the more silly stuff, as if, like I said, Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And that would be really funny here, especially some of the areas would be like, someone like, this one can marry your own daughters, like for Annie the Lannister.
Now that would be an interesting twist. Take notes among meeples. Yeah. So any final thoughts? It's pretty good. There's definitely room for. I'd love to see more cards added in the future.
Well, that's what like
you were saying, but
because we sort of saw.
Yeah, you will cycle through pretty much the whole game.
Especially the females, because granted they do get covered up. But a lot of them are just either get coins when they're birthed, or they do something. They get the 2 coins in the prestige once they get married.
Yeah.
I understand why.
Right.
And it fits. It definitely. I love it because it captures. I'm definitely worth back. I'm very happy I backed it because it captures that I think that the medieval Renaissance sort of noble lineage style for
totally. But it's not nearly as dry as that theme might suggest. Like it doesn't. I don't know if that sounds fun. Like you get to have a noble bloodline, but it is pretty.
Well,
fun.
it's the drama of it. I think that's what made it fun because it's like. Oh, I get to marry. I'm like, I remember during some of the games just being like, I don't have any sons.
Right.
Why don't I have any sons? And then the exact opposite happened. Like, no one has any daughters.
Yeah.
It's just
my poor unwed son can't marry because no one.
And then there's one of them like, I don't want to marry you. Just like, I don't care. It's just,
I just gotta.
I'm not paying the dowry for you.
Right.
It's just great.
So if that sounds like a good time to you, and it should.
No, I mean, if you have any interest in, I'd say, historical Europe, this is definitely a game to put on your shelf. I think, I mean, like I said, the cards actually relate to the characters. They actually have little quotes on them about them. It captures the idea of trading and dealing with other families, being the other players, in terms of sort of that politicalness, but without too much. I feel like while there is a bit, like I said with my brother, we had the blood feud, but that was like one turn.
Yeah, no, the interaction is really good.
Right, but I mean, there's much
not as much like it's not as cutthroat as.
Yeah, because I mean, we can think of some other games where literally that's the core mechanic.
Yeah, no, I think the marriage, like we already discussed, is a perfect example of just that interesting. You're interacting with each other in a really interesting way that isn't necessarily just fighting each other.
Right, and it was really interesting to see how I maintained other families and how maintaining your own. Like I know one game you ended up all blue.
Right.
And it was driving you mad.
yeah, and yet I won. So there's definitely room for strategies and depth, but at the same time, like I said, it's pretty easy to teach, pretty simple, straightforward, doesn't take that long.
Yeah, and you said like you really like the fact that you were stuck with these three.
Yeah, I like that because usually that's my downfall in worker placement games. Somebody else gets that fourth piece and before I can.
Well, I think what's also nice about it is, at least I felt in the times, it's very hard to do everything.
Right, for sure.
Like you said, you went all blue and won, but for me, I was going red and blue beginning, but I stopped doing combat because my brother was owing combat every time.
Yeah, you really have to be with your limited options, and you have to be smart. But by the time the end game, though, you are able to work it so you get a lot of choices depending on how you play. So it's a good balance.
But I definitely want to do it with more people, just to see how, especially when I'm very excited to see if we did like with 5 people, be like, all right, how many brides? And like 4 women come up playing like, crud.
You need to have like a fancy party and everybody gets dressed up and presents their choices to you.
No, we definitely have to play. I want to play this right next to Battle for Souls and Musée.
Yeah, all the classical art-looking games. Yeah, definitely. So you can check out at the website amongmeeples.dk. The game is for sale, and hopefully at some point soon it will also be in wide release at stores. They're going to be at Spiel this year, depending on when you're watching. I'm sure they'll go to conventions and stuff like that, so stay tuned, look around.
By the way, don't get discouraged by the DE in case you're worried that it's not in English. It is in English.
Yeah, it's in English, and even if it wasn't, well, it should. You need to understand the language. Yeah. But the rules are online as well in multiple languages. So if you want to check out the full rules before you decide whether or not you might want to try it for yourself, you can do that. So that's Among Nobles, and I think that's going to do it for today.
Yeah.
I'm Jonathan Estes.
I'm Will Keeler, and this is Roll for Crit.